It's Sunday! It's Ask GMBN. It's not Friday, it's not the Dirt Shed show, it's our weekly show where we answer our viewers' questions. Now you might have noticed, Neil's not actually here, it's just me. I'm running solo this week, he's on his way back from Sea Otter. So let's get to it. This week we've got dropper posts, we've got alpine riding and jumping techniques, and of course we've got the quick fire round, and also correct me if I'm wrong. Our first question comes from ALISTAIR, and he's going away for the first time to the Alps, and he's wondering how he should set up his bike. Now ALISTAIR, I could recommend that you actually make your suspension just a little bit softer to start with, and then gradually ramp up to your original setup once you get comfortable on the trails. They are a little bit rougher. Likewise for your tyres, I'd suggest going for maybe a slightly stiffer sidewall and also something with a bit more traction. You'll actually find that you'll get less punctures and more grip. But I could actually suggest that you check out this video from GMBN. It's What is a Bike Park, and it's our guide to riding in the bike park.
What is a bike park? Well, I guess it can describe anywhere with trails designed specifically to ride your mountain bike. But let's face it, the real deal is a bike park in a ski resort. You ski or snowboard in winter, then come summer, the facilities cater perfectly for mountain bikers.
Our next question comes from Michael Gutiapo, and this is quite an interesting one. He's basically asking whether when he goes to Whistler, he should take his trail bike or should he rent a downhill bike. Now I've got a little bit of experience with this. I've been to Whistler the last 2 years and raced the enduro that was on. And I've got to say that some of the best trails I've ridden in Whistler are outside of the bike park. Sure, if you're going to be riding the bike park all day, then I'd suggest renting a downhill bike. But just go into the local bike shop, ask them for a little bit of advice on where you should go riding, and they'll be happy to help. Our next question comes from mountain bike HAMISH, and he's saying, how should you ride in practice runs when racing downhill? Fast, slow, or scouting for lines? I'd tend to say on your first run, take it slow, take it steady, check out any lines that you've looked at when you've been walking the track, and then gradually build up the tempo as you get throughout the day. I could also point you towards our GMBN video on how to choose a line. At Downhill World Cups and EWS events, you'll see many of the top racers pull into the side, investigate sections or corners, and decide the best option. This allows them to gain precious seconds or even milliseconds.
This is a good example here. You can see there's this rock, and it's just on the inside of a left-hand corner going into a gully. So I think actually I'm going to unweight over that rock, land in the middle of the gully, save myself a little bit of time by using a straighter line.
Now, Sean Hugh is asking, what are the pros and cons of a dropper post? This one, you could go on about it all day really, but I'm going to try and keep it a little bit short. In my opinion, the pros really outweigh the cons. The only con is the slight weight disadvantage of it compared to, say, a carbon post, but the pros are so good that when you get to the top of the trail, you don't have to think about adjusting your saddle. Your saddle's always in the same height position. And if you're coming along a bit of undulating trail and you want to just drop it down really easily, well, you can. So, in my opinion, why wouldn't you have a dropper post, especially for trail and enduro riding? Now, Henry OXBURGH asks, I'm struggling with getting my back wheel up with bunny hops. I can do the manual bit fine, but have you got any tips? This is quite a common one that we get asked. And I'm actually just going to point you straight to the video on how to bunny hop, a step-by-step guide, and just make sure that you are using those hips to push right back up, and you'll be lifting that back wheel up in no time.
So let's break the bunny hop down into a couple of parts first. It starts with a pump and a manual. This is where you go from your neutral position, stood up in the middle of the bike, you pump down and into the bike, and then you use this L shape to the back of the bike with your hips. Exactly the same as the manual technique. Down and back, that's going to take your weight right over the rear wheel, and that should lift the front wheel. It's really important that your arms go straight as you go back, so actually you're using your weight to lift the front wheel and you're not using your arms to lift the front wheel.
So let's get on to the quick fire round. Derek Tube asks, why don't you have things like a GMBN bike jersey, trail shorts or water bottles in the shop? Just watch this space, they're coming very soon. Best Line Film asks, any tips for riding in muddy conditions with clip pedals? To be honest, I'd just say just get out there and practice and do it, and don't overthink it. That's probably the best tips, easy. Hugo Chanera asks, what size dropper post should I run? I'd say 125mm for trail and something like 150mm for enduro. Emmanuel BALASCAK asks, can you make more videos for hardtails because people don't have full suspension and clip-in pedals? Yes, watch this space as well, they'll be coming very soon to the channel. Ben REES says, could you give some tips on how to get sponsorship and what to do for sponsorship? Ben, I'd say just do what you're doing, improve your riding, do a bit of social media, and if you go to a couple of races and you're doing well, you're going to get noticed and you'll get the sponsorship that you want and deserve. Alex Jones asks, how do I know whether I should upgrade my bike to disc brakes or higher end V brakes? To be honest, Alex, I'd say go straight to the disc brakes, and if you can afford it, get some hydraulic ones as well. The modulation compared to a cable actuated brake is unbelievable. That's it for this week's quick fire round. As ever, you can leave the comments down below, send them into social media, and we'll get back to you if we can. Okay, it's time for that part of the show. Correct me if I'm wrong. So this one comes from Matthew Sloan, and he's asking about drop-offs. Let's have a look and see what you're doing, Matthew. Oh yeah, I can kind of see what you're doing, and I've got some tips for you. Make sure that you have enough speed is the first point that I'm going to give you. Also make sure that you're using your hips. You've got quite a good technique of leaning back, but you're not driving through your hips, and that's why you actually landed right in the back wheel and you didn't manage to get the front down. Also, if you pull up a little bit more, then you'll find that you'll make the landing that bit easier. Now I'm also going to throw you towards the video that GMBN did with Neil, and it's how to drop off like a pro.
So, how do you ride drop-offs? The first thing to learn really is how to manual properly, and we've done loads of videos on that already, so click down below, there'll be a link in the description for how to manual first. I'll talk about that briefly now, but a good manual is important because you'll be using your weight to lift the front wheel rather than using your arms. If you use your arms to lift the front wheel, it's easy for the wheel to go slightly sideways, which can get you in trouble on bigger drop-offs, but also actually you're pulling the bars up and your weight is staying quite far forward on the bike. So if the front wheel then drops too early on a drop-off, you're in trouble.
That's it for this week's Ask GMBN. As ever, if you have some questions that you want answered with your mountain bike, then you can send them in. You can use our hashtag. You can also use the new email address, ask@gmbn.com, or you can leave your comments in the video down below. Now for more great videos on GMBN, why don't you click just right up there for this week's Dirt Shed show, and you can click just down there for the feature on electric motors. And as ever, don't forget to subscribe right in the middle, just about there. You get a free video every day of the week, and you probably get some great tips as well. If you enjoyed this one, found it helpful, then give us a thumb up like.